goes on media. This is Coming Out Stories. It's a podcast about one of the most important conversations of your life. I'm Emma Goswell. In this episode, you're going to hear from Lucia. She's a children's entertainer and she adopted a baby at the age of 35.
Gosh, the first time I actually thought something about being maybe different or being self-aware was when I was a little girl on the bus. I remember seeing another girl that was about, would she be about 11? And she had very, very short hair, like a boy's hairstyle. I remember thinking, wow, she looks really different. And she turned around on the bus and she gave me eye contact. I remember looking at her and being kind of transfixed by it. I didn't know what it was. It was just, you know, and I've never forgotten her. I've never forgotten this. I just looked at her and she looked at me. But I remember thinking, wow, she was kind of out there and different. And again, in the 80s, she was sporting a boy's hairstyle. And unless you were a boy at school, you didn't have a boy's hairstyle. I didn't see many girls. I mean, mine was short, but my mum's was short and she couldn't do bunches.
Maybe it was me.
It could have been you never know.
I definitely had short hair in the 80s, but you're right, it wasn't that. But that was clearly a moment.
There was something
you,
there. When I go back and I think, when was my kind of earliest memory of something feeling a little bit different? I think that's what it was. And then there's been lots of things over the years. You know, I've had lots of different relationships, you know, with men and women. But the first time, would have been on the bus and just thinking, I'm intrigued.
So would you identify as bisexual or lesbian?
It's a tough one. I'm still on a discovery myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I really am.
Okay.
Yeah. In my mid-20s, I was madly and deeply in love with a man. And I thought my life was set to live in Knutsford and have 2.4 kids. And he finished the relationship on Boxing Day. And it came out of the blue. And I was very shocked about that. But no, I absolutely adored him. If you look back at all the different people that I've been out with, they're all completely unique.
You don't have to put yourself in a box, do you?
No, well, I never have done. But it's still a quest to find out, I suppose, more about me individually. And that's why I love talking about it, because everybody's experiences in life are all individual. I mean, maybe if I had a type, I could say, well, that's my type and that's what I go for and that's what I'm looking for. But I don't. I mean, I have a really good friend who loves, like, firemen, you know, and she'll say, look at this poster, look at this, or look at this calendar. And I'll think, no, it doesn't really do it for me. Is he a real fireman? If he was a real fireman and I met him and I thought he was lovely, then
I'd be impressed.
I'd be more attracted, yeah. But the actual physicalities. And the same thing with women. I'm not just naturally drawn to the physicality, although I do think women do have beautiful bodies. And I do think they are wonderful creatures and they're designed to attract and allure, aren't they, I suppose, in the human nature of us all. And
it works for me.
Yeah. So... And I'm still developing all that now that I'm in a same-sex relationship myself. Sometimes I still wake up and go, oh, we're both girls, aren't we? And I remind her, and she's like, yeah, we are, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, so not that I don't want to put myself in a box, because I love being part of that. So if there's a big group of lesbians saying, come on, we're lesbians and be with us, then I wouldn't be like, no, I stand on this side. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm with you. Or if there's a big group of bisexuals. Or at a time in my life when I've identified as heterosexual, I'm with them as well. Do you know what I mean? So I can't just take sides, and I can't.
No,
and I don't
maybe
want
you're
to.
Pansexual.
Maybe could be.
Okay, so when was the first time you did verbalise it and came out to someone?
The first time was when I was introduced to a friend, and there was a clear attraction there when I very first met her, and I hadn't up until then. I was about 22, and I'd always had boyfriends, and she approached me, and she kissed me, and I remember thinking. You know, and Katy Perry years later, I kissed a girl and I liked it and all that. You know, I was way ahead of my time there. But I didn't, I liked it and I thought, wow. And I was scared and I was a bit like, oh, gosh, and what's happening here? And it was confusing. And again, it was a time where sexuality like that was seen sometimes by many people as a deviation. And it was seen as not the norm and not acceptable. And
in the 80s? In
the 80s, yeah. And it was. And I remember thinking at 22, gosh, if I enter into this, if I pursue this, you know, how would I ever become a mum? You know, adoption wasn't possible then. You know, marriage wasn't recognised in churches. And I just thought, you're taking a lot here. This is a big ask and everything. But I couldn't stop the feelings of being attracted to her and falling in love with her, yeah.
You were really thinking the future endgame, weren't you? Even in your early 20s.
I've always done that, yeah. I see. I'd like to be a centurion. That's the end goal, to be a centurion. I love meeting centurions and hearing about their lives and how they've gone through it. So, yeah, so at that stage in my life, up until then, I'd maybe been a little bit bi-curious, but I'd certainly not pursued it. I'd had lots of female friends, lots of friends that were gay, and there was never a person that I thought, oh, this feels right to, until I'd met my first girlfriend, yeah.
And at that point you thought, do you know what, this is real, I better tell people?
Not at the time, because she wasn't really happy to do that.
Okay. So you're both in the closet for a bit?
A little bit. Not with friends, maybe a few weeks, that's all. But for friends and family, it wasn't something that... Because, again, it was a new relationship. And there's even relationships, previous to the one I'm in now, that I wouldn't just rock up at my mum's and go through every single detail with her, because, you don't... She's heard it all before half the time, and she wants to watch Countdown. Do you know what I mean? So it just wasn't... And it's something I was discovering. It's not something I wanted to, necessarily share with everyone. In the same way that, I went on to adopt a baby on my own when I was 35. And when you're going through the adoption process, and it took 3 years, they were like, you need this time with this baby, your attachment. You need this, not just, hi, everybody, look at the baby I brought home, and introducing them to everybody. It's overwhelming, you know what I mean? And so there was a lot of time that I spent just with me and Frankie when I adopted. It was just our time. And in the beginning, when I was going through this early relationship, I just wanted it to be something that we could discover ourselves and find out if it was something that would become long-term. And it didn't become long-term, but we became the best of friends. We've been friends for over 20-odd years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
And we did property developments together. We've had boyfriends since. We've lived together. And she is truly my soulmate, my best friend, and I love her to bits.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So when was the moment
Evolved.
then when you thought, I'm going to come out to the world, or to my family
Not
at
to the
least?
world. It was just dribs and drabs, really. Whoever I came across, if people asked me a direct question, I would always give them a direct answer and an honest answer, because I've always been like that. I've always worn my heart on my sleeve. But some people don't always want to ask. They'd rather just kind of like come to their own conclusions, or not, or brush things under the carpet, and...
Sometimes it isn't a big moment, is it? Sometimes it is just a word dropped into a conversation, instead of saying my partner, my girlfriend, and then you carry on the conversation.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like now I'm in a wonderful same-sex relationship with my beautiful Jen. And again, she's just Jen, and then people will work it out, or sometimes they don't work it out, or they might see a photograph of us and then they're like, oh, right. But I just took, Jen and I are going out for a meal, or we're going to see Jen's mum, or... I've not kind of dropped it in. The funny thing is that obviously I'm starting to write this blog, and I wanted to be able to write something that was comedic and would bring people together. And it was about when I actually said to my mum that I'd decided that I wanted to date a woman, and I'd never done this before, where I'd thought, right, I'm going to actually actively go and ask a woman out on a date. It's going to be so exciting. It was quite scary, actually, but it was a bit liberating. So I thought, no, I'm going to do it. I'd done like Match.com before, and I'd done it with men, and that didn't really work out very well. I met some lovely chaps, but no, that didn't work out. There's some funny stories there. But with this one, I felt empowered, and I wanted to do it for me, and I actually wanted to take a woman out, and I wanted to pay, and I wanted to take her for a steak. It turned out that steak wasn't on the menu because it was around about Christmas, and we had to like join onto a works do.
Brilliant.
And have like crackers and Christmas hats. So that was funny for a first date, but... Yeah, I wanted to experience that, and me be in control of that, because up until then, I'd really been asked out. I'd been approached, and I thought, for the first time I think in my life, I'm going to go after something that I think I might want. And even then, I wasn't quite sure. And this is only a couple of years ago. And then just by chance, I stumbled across the most beautiful emergency medical technician who works in the Northwest Ambulance Service, and she's incredible. So again, it's the person. The uniform's great as well, don't get me wrong. But no, I admire her. She ticks all the boxes that I look for in a person.
And she was the one that you went out and asked out on an internet dating site?
Yeah, that's just over 2 years ago. So after about the second date, I was so excited about this, and it was going so well, I wanted to tell my mum.
Yeah.
So yes. So I picked her up like I often do and take her out for the day, a bit of shopping in the high street, and I drive a van being a kids entertainer, so you can't miss me when I'm driving around in the fun bus. So mum's used to it now, so she jumped in. She was there with all the shopping bags and stuff, and I said, I've got some news for you. So she said, what's that? So I said, I've asked a woman out on a date. I'm dating a woman. And her response was, oh, look, B&M's have got discount on flapjacks. That was the first sentence out of her mouth.
Was she genuinely excited about the flapjack discount?
Yes.
That's hard to say. Or was she trying to change the conversation, do you think?
No, she wouldn't change the conversation, because I can talk to my mum about anything, I really can.
Yeah.
I mean, she stayed over last night. I've not slept a wink because she snores like a trooper. I love her to bits. But no, we sit up chatting and putting the world to rights and talking. So no, if there's something I ever want to bring to mum and talk to her about, we go in depth, we psychoanalyse, and we love it, tea and biscuits, and we sit there chatting all day.
So really, Mum, I'm gay, I'm dating a woman, But what about the flapjacks?
At that stage, it was just about, I'm dating a woman. Because again, I wasn't in love at that stage. I was excited about what was happening in my life. I always tell her what I'm doing in my life because I can't get away from it. She'll ring me up and, where are you? What are you doing? What have you had for your tea? Where are you now? So I can't get away from her even if I wanted to. She documents my life all the time. She's so invested and she loves me to bits. Yeah. I am the same. I want to know where she is. But
was there a moment then when she wanted to dissect it and talk it through, or not?
No, not till later on, really. Not until we've discussed whether we can actually nip into B&Ms. I'm thinking at any point is she going to go, so go on, tell me. With a lot of things with my mum, though, over the years, like when I wanted to start brownies, she wouldn't get me the uniform. At the beginning, it was like, well, go and try it first, see if you like it. I'm not paying out for the uniform. You might give it up after 2 weeks.
Oh, she thought it was a phase.
She could have thought it was a phase, yeah. I'm quite an extrovert. I'm quite outgoing. I'm very open-minded to stuff. So I think Mum was thinking at that point. And she never knew at that stage about the previous relationship that I'd had all those years ago. She didn't know about that. Because it ended, we'd moved on, and neither one of us had been in female relationships. So it was, I thought, well, maybe it was a chapter.
A lot of parents
closed,
do you think that the phase thing is real, and that you're going to grow out of it or whatever?
Yeah.
Despite the fact you might have been in your 30s by then.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting concept as well, telling people in a car, because they can't really get away, can they?
Yeah, exactly. She can't get out. I was going about 40. She jumped. But no, she absolutely loves Jen. Yeah. I mean, she's one of those mums that would probably say the word lesbian under a brilliant. Yeah. I mean, it's not the greatest word in the world, is it?
No.
I mean, I said in my blog the other day, it's like potato or moist. They're horrible words.
No,
it's
moist
not good. It's not a powerful word. In French, beautiful. Lesbienne, beautiful. If you're Mancunian, you're a lesbian. It's a bit, coarse, a bit harsh.
Is that the actual French word for lesbian, or have you just said lesbian in a French accent?
That's what it is.
Is it? Right, okay.
Lesbienne. Yeah.
Moist is much worse, though.
It is horrible, isn't it, the word moist? Yeah. But,
so have you had to tell anyone else in your family?
Well, no, it all went round the grapevine then, obviously, because Mum knew. So that was great. But the conversation she had with her sister was interesting again, because they must have said, oh, we knew and we thought this. Well, she lived with a woman for all these years, or, this, that and the other. So there was lots of people wondering, and putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5 and 12 and whatever. Because I'm still putting the numbers together and I don't know them yet. I've not worked out the equation, so I don't expect anybody else to. I really don't. But I love talking about it. I'll sit with my auntie now and we'll chat, and she'll ask me loads of questions that my mum wouldn't ask me, so it's, I don't need to know that. And whereas I just love shocking her, I love, so how many other lesbians do you know, Mum? Well, there's Claire Balding and there's, she'll go through them there's one off the Bake Off. So I said, Mary Berry. So, just love winding her up. She's like, Mary Berry's not a lesbian. And of course, she's always loved Doris Day. So I'm like, what do you think? Maybe Doris, is a lesbian. No, Doris doesn't. So we get into all it's comedy, it's humour. I think it connects people. It always has in our family.
And what do your aunties ask you then? What sort of things? Straight people do
personal details, really. More like relationship details,
right, okay.
And things like that. And like your friends would, she could kiss her and things like that. Your mum wouldn't necessarily ask you that, but she wants to know, is she serious? Has she got a good job? Is she sensible? Will she look after you? What's her family like?
Oh, very good.
When her mum, so just, I'm very old school. My mum's very traditional. She's a traditionalist. She was married to my dad for 50 years.
Wow.
My dad was her only true love. She's only been with one man. So it's a different generation. It's moving quickly as well. It really is. It's changing so quickly. There seems to be a rush in the last 5 years. I mean, I've been part of the gay community since I started coming to the gay village when I was 18. I've always supported friends and supported the community. And I love the community. It's an all-welcoming, diverse group of people. And you meet people who are struggling as well, and people that do have secrets and they are frightened and stuff. And it's nice to meet people and be able to reassure them and just get on a level with them of who they are individually. I love that.
You are a self-employed children's entertainer.
Yes.
You wear a clown's outfit.
I do, I'm a clown.
Have you had to struggle to come out at work, or has it not really been an issue?
No, there's always been kind of, in jokes and things like that. And there's part of my personality that I'll talk about relationships and different things. I've always brought my life into my work as well. So, when I was going through the adoption process, I've talked about that because that was big in my life. I talked about when I was in love with David and we were choosing tiles for a flat in Manchester. So there's all those different, elements.
Cool. So if you were to give advice to a young person or someone that maybe was even a bit older and struggling to come to terms with it and come out, what advice would you give?
Gosh, it's so individual, isn't it? Because again, it's personal choice. I wouldn't like anybody to tell me what to do or when to do it. No. I think you have to come to terms with things yourself and in your own time. You really do. But put yourself around like-minded people. That's the thing.
I thought you said put yourself around. That's different advice.
That's different advice, yeah. Just, be yourself. Obviously, I've worked with children for years, so I've seen children display certain behaviours and characteristics, and I'm thinking, could this child be gay? But there's nothing even there at the moment to be able to say, oh, this child is identifying maybe like this, or it's just a taboo. We don't talk about it. I remember a little boy, the first little boy I met, and I thought, he has got to be gay. And he was 3. He was in the nursery. He was absolutely beautiful. And every morning, Miss Davis, can I? And I was like, of course you can. And he'd go into the home corner and put on a Goldilocks wig, and 3 of his mates would be the 3 bears. Brilliant. And he never wanted to be the bear. I said to him, would you like to just be the bear today? No. And he wore that wig and he strutted his stuff and he loved it. And we all talked about him as teachers in the staff room. Isn't he incredible, isn't it? And he was so full of himself in a wonderful, positive way. And yet, in an inner-city school in Manchester, he will have got the digs and the knockbacks and the looks and the, you know what I mean? He'll have got that back in the 90s. What's wonderful about this story is, years later, I was in the gay village myself in one of the clubs, and the next minute I just heard, Miss Davis! And he just walked towards me in the biggest platform shoes you've ever seen, just sparkler armour with collars out here, face paints, the biggest afro you've ever seen, eyelashes, the most beautiful. He reminded me of RuPaul.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
was he in drag?
He wasn't actually, no.
He just had the heels.
He had the heel, he had the big boots, which made him even taller than when he was tall anyway. And he'd remembered me, and I thought that was wonderful. I mean, I was at the school, I worked there for 6 or 7 years, so I watched him go from 3 to 11 and leave school.
And he definitely was gay then.
For that one, I was a bit like, yes, I was right about that. And it's not that you want to label children, you don't by any means, but you kind of want to support them. And if you think, hang on a minute, because you know children, you do, and they go through stages. You meet children at school that they come on and they're really academic in the beginning, and you're like, oh, look, they can do this and they can do that and they're amazing. And then they level out, and by the time they get to 8, 9, 10, they're one of the gang, and you know what I mean? And some parents can put so much pressure on them when they're very little. They're doing Sudoku at 3, send them for this and extra things, and it's like, well, just slow down. Okay, it's great learning all that stuff, but let them just find their feet, let them just develop the social and emotional skills first, and academia will come later if they're interested in that.
And just because someone wants to be Goldilocks doesn't mean they might necessarily be gay.
Absolutely, exactly. So you just kind of watch and you monitor and you encourage, and you don't make him ever feel as if he's doing anything wrong, because again, it's dressing up. It's a little boy that's dressing up. If he wants to dress up as Elsa and walk around the nursery singing Let It Go, let him. And the same thing with, girls wanting to dress up as G.I. Jane, or my little girl just dressed up as a World War I officer.
Oh, for Remembrance Sunday.
Yeah. Now that was quite strange for her, because she's very, very feminine. So to actually put a suit on with a tie and a collar, for her, you could see it was a bit like, do I have to keep it on for long?
Out of a comfort zone.
Yeah, because she wanted the shoes on, the clip-clop shoes and the floaty dresses and the fur boa. So.
It's interesting, though. I have interviewed a lot of people who say that they did know that they were gay from a very, very young age as a child, you know, and had experiences. It's an interesting thing. We don't talk about it much, but a lot of gay people I've spoken to,
I think it needs to be spoken about.
Certainly knew about it. But the interesting thing is that at that age, other kids don't judge you.
No, they just like, they loved him for who he was. He was funny as well. He was funny and charismatic. Yeah. And he was a magnet, and he drew attention, and people loved him for it. And that's why he stood out more than anything. Yeah. Just because you see a girl in a football kit at the age of 8, you don't have to be stereotyping and thinking, oh, she's going to go into some sports and she's going to be a football playing, hockey playing, tennis playing, lesbian, and this, and people are quick to sometimes judge and get on there with certain areas. It's like, let them just play, let them develop. I mean, my brother used to wear Farrahs as well, and I used to think he looked so smart in Farrahs, and I couldn't wait for him to outgrow them so that I could wear them. But I remember my dad saying, "Ooh, do you need to be wearing those really?" Because the boys, and they were boys' trousers because they were his trousers. You can see what he meant, But I remember Mum taking the hems up on them, and if she's comfortable and she wants to wear them, my mum's always wore pants, But I have friends in the police force, and when they very first started, they were assigned with a police skirt and a handbag. How a woman can run after a baddie with
ridiculous,
isn't it? It's not that long ago, and again, we're looking at 20 odd years ago. So things are changing. You know what I mean? We're all becoming more self-aware. I think we're starting to respect each other a little bit more. There's still that group of people that are just hateful and prejudiced, unfortunately, and they've got a bit of work to do on themselves. But no, I think in schools, I think we need to be a little bit more open about accepting people for who they are and that diversity, and not even pigeonholing children and saying you might be this or you might be that. And they're children at the end of the day. Let them just explore.
As you said, you're still working it out.
Absolutely.
So you don't just put a label on someone that's 8, do you?
Absolutely. And just be positive around them and be loving. And if they're going through something and they're having thoughts or worries or ideas, then just, put your arm around them and go walk with them. It doesn't have to be, you have to make such a big deal about everything. It's part of childhood, it's part of growing up, it's part of finding out who you are.
A big thank you to Lucia for telling us her coming out story, and especially for recounting that hilarious story of what her mother said or didn't say when she came out. Please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from. We'd also love to hear from you on Twitter. You can find us there at Come Out Stories. I'm Emma Goswell, and Coming Out Stories is a What Goes On media production. Next time you'll hear an inspiring story from Chris Bear Strong McNaughton. He competes in strongman competitions and he's currently trying to become Ireland's strongest man.
I guess that a lot of things that were just, normal banter, crack, closeness of a friendship, once you were labelled as gay, a lot of guy friends didn't like that anymore. So I did lose a few friends out of it. I gained a lot of brilliant friends in return.